Morning guys, welcome back to the latest video. So it's now Tuesday morning, which is the start of the week since it was bank holiday yesterday. As Paul mentioned, too many short weeks at the moment. Don't seem to get as much done as we'd like. But yeah, we're back. This is what we'll be on with this week. So I'll let Paul tell you about the 500 and where we're at with it.
Right, we're luckily enough we're at that stage now. We've got everything back. So today Steve's going to give me an hand to put the engine and gearbox back in this car. We've got the rear crank seal to do, but what we're going to do is put the engine in first, and then it holds the engine in place so it's easy to do the crank seal. New clutch on, gearbox back in, suspension. We're waiting for that, should be sent today. We ordered it on Friday last week from Graham Good Racing. Graham supplies us with most of our parts we use on these cars. Just fantastic service, so thanks to Graham Good for that. So when the suspension comes out, can go back on, then there's just a few of the little niggly jobs that the customer wants us to do. Hopefully we should see the end of this car very, very soon, and then we'll do the comparison video that we said we would do for you, basically against the 3-door to a 500 once this car's complete. So that's this car for this week. Another job that's to do that only came in last week. We mentioned it on a previous video that when we were at the NEC, a gentleman approached us with a Sierra race car shell. He'd had a cage put in it quite a few years ago, but he saw our Hegenberger build, and we were discussing the differences on historic cages compared to modern spec cages. Well, his car had a modern spec cage put in it, a child's climbing frame cage, I call it. There was nothing wrong with it, perfectly good cage. There was just bars everywhere. Don't look right, in my opinion, on a historic car. So he liked the cage that Steve had put in the Hegenberger build. So he asked if we would put one in his car for him. And then when he dropped it off, the list expanded slightly. He wants us to put the air jack towers in it, the front and rear anti-roll bar, pickup points for Group A, and a few other little bits and pieces, the fuel fillers in the rear quarters, etc. So what we'll do now, we'll show you around this car before Steve starts it, so you can see before, during and after. One thing I forgot about was the car that you see on the ramp behind us. We mentioned it in last week's video. Quite a comprehensive list, as you can probably see, that Steve's done on the wing there. Basically, this car is coming as a modified car, a beautiful car. The customer bought it because it was such a nice car and wants us to put it back to standard. So we've done, or Steve's done a big long list of what we think needs changing. So we'll go through that with the customer this evening. I'll give him a bell, say exactly where he wants to go, what he wants changing, what he doesn't, depending on his budget and that, of course. And then we'll be jumping onto that car and get that sorted as well.
I think it's probably worth pointing out that every car that comes in, the customer has an idea of what he wants, but we put a full list together of everything we've seen, because there might be bits and pieces that he isn't aware of, and then obviously we go back to him and then he can make the decision then and say, actually, whilst you've got the car, you know, on your ramp, can you just do this and can you do that you've noticed? And it just saves him having to bring it back at a later date.
Good point.
Right, fellas, here we are. So this is a car, again, from the NEC that we've been asked to obviously put one of our cages in. So the cage that was in it, there was nothing wrong with it. It was a perfectly good cage. But the only thing is, if you're building one of these and you put a modern spec cage in it, you limit what you can use it for. It basically becomes a track day toy or something for maybe modified saloons or whatever, but you can't use it in historic stuff. And these tend to be more valuable if they're eligible for the historic racing. That's what people want to use them for obvious reasons. So basically what we're going to do is I'll take the remaining bits. The customer's obviously taken out what he can, and I'll just go around today and I'll start unpicking bits. This will come off because it's having the air jacks in it, so this panel here gets taken out, and then that will allow me to cut this bit of the cage out a bit neater and tidy up and basically prep it for the cage going in. So I've got, obviously, through the bulkhead, I'll have to tidy up around the bulkhead to get these cages out. But it's probably, if you come around here, you can see actually how much, as he started cutting it out, the cage has sprung, so there was some tension in that, which ideally you don't want any tension in the shell, really. And again, that comes down to how you fit it. You don't really want to be moving too much about with the porta pack if you don't have to. So yeah, that's probably going to be my job for the next 3 weeks, I would say, something like that, I think. Yeah, I'll just go around it. I'll time lapse what I can. I'll show you what I can, and we'll go from there.
We've got, as we mentioned, he wants us to put the fuel fillers in, so we'll cut them holes, flange them over, ready to accept the fuel fillers. We've told him how much them fuel fillers are, and he nearly fainted, but he wants them. We're just going to speak to customer today, because we're going to obviously have to unpick all these wings to get the air jack towers in, because the air jack towers go behind there, which obviously you can't get in with a welder or a grinder or anything, and it's had the body kit bonded on. So we're going to have to see if we can get the kit off or unpick the wing down that back edge on the inside and see if we can pull it forward far enough to get, so Steve can get in with a welder and a grinder. A couple of other little things. This lip on the bulkhead there, you don't want that when you're trying to work on the car, so we trim it back and then fold it so it's like that piece. So we'll fold all that for him. And then obviously, no doubt there'll be more to do, because as Steve mentions, we do a list what we think on every car, and then we talk to customer, and usually they go with what we suggest should be done. This car's having, as I said, anti-roll bar mounts and other bits and pieces, but we'll show you that as Steve cracks on with it.
Alright guys, you'll have heard this morning, I was mentioning that Paul, we're going to put gearbox and that back in here once the engine was in. What's actually happened is I've ended up doing it. So I've put new crank seals in. I fitted that earlier on. I've put flywheel back on, torqued them up. Flywheel's torqued up 69 Newton meters with a bit of low strength Loctite. Clutch is in, clutch align, clutch cover, 21 Newton meters, and I've put new release bearing in the box. So if we look around here, we'll see that he's found himself a better job and left me to do the mucky work. There he is, look, asleep, snoozing in the Sierra. So here's a lift of this gearbox. Right guys, it's Wednesday evening, midweek, so I thought we'd just have a quick look at what we've been on with. So Paul started off with this car. He obviously, the intention was that he was going to rebuild it, but we kind of thought it'd be put to better use, digging out some other bits and pieces, and which we'll show you in a minute. But basically, I've ended up putting engine back in this. I've gone through all the hoses, all the bits and pieces, and inspected it all as I've fitted it, because you know these cars are old now. So it is good. You don't just throw the bits back on. You've got to check and look for damage on any of them. And what I did find is bottom radiator hose. Paul shows you it here. I'll just grab camera and then we can come over. But where that actually sits is that sits on the fan cowling, and you can see there that it's difficult to get a. There we go. Look, you can see there it's just rubbed through. And when we actually looked in his special stores of parts, quite a few of the ones that was up there had also rubbed through. So it seems it's quite a common thing for him to do it. So it's one for you to look out for. Obviously, if the hose is not fitted quite correctly, the orientation of it sits on the fan cowling. So it's obviously that top rad hose there. Difficult to see, but it just sits on top of the cowling. And obviously, as the engine's running, it just wears away. So there was that one. And there was also this one that Paul's got in his hand as well. So we'd found it had cracked quite badly. Although it's not split all the way, it's gone soft and it probably ain't got much life left in it. So we changed that one as well.
That's difficult, isn't it? Because it goes on to the water
so that
pump.
goes bottom of the water pump. So that's what I've been on with. And again, all the hoses have been cleaned. All new Jubilee clips. So some of these, they've just started to brown off a little bit. So as you can see, every single one that I've put back on, I've made sure it's in good condition, cleaned it all up. All the hoses and stuff, wiring, loom and everything's all been clipped nicely out of the way. And how good does that fresh rocker cover look? So that was basically engine. It's pretty much ready to go now. I've put all the fluids in it, topped up the oil, or I will top up the oil. I've put the basic 4 litres in to start with. Once it's filled the oil filler and what have you when we run it, I'll top that up. I've got the coolant in it, what I want to top up of antifreeze again when it's running. But one of the other jobs that I've ended up having to do on this, let me just put that back down, is the radio. And I have got some pictures of that, which I can throw up. But basically the radio, as is probably quite common in a lot of these now, is in like the 2000s when it was popular to have a big sound system. All the original Ford wiring gets chopped out, or the plug gets chopped out for a more modern radio. And that was the case with this one. Basically, it had been reverted back to the original, or a more original radio and amp, and the wiring was just a mess. So I put some photos up where they were twisted together wires, the aerial didn't go down, you couldn't switch it off, and it was a bit of a nightmare. So I've rewired all of that, made sure it switches off on the power button now. Everything's heat shrinked, all the wiring that wasn't needed is being chopped out, and that looks a pretty good job now. So I'll put some pictures of that up on the screen. And that's pretty much, I've started throwing the suspension back on it. I've probably got maybe another 2 hours and I think I'll be about done with this. So whilst I've been on with this, Paul's been on with Andy Kirkleys' car next door, digging all the bits out ready to start on that. So we'll go through there and we'll have a look at what he's done.
Right, well, my job today is we're obviously going to start rebuilding Andy Kirkleys' cam shipping car. This is a genuine touring car. This ran in 1988. And it's got the drivers actually on the roof. We put them on. This is a car we've restored. This came to us completely stripped in a poor state. We did all the welding, new floor pans, new wings, a rear quarter, new doors, bonnet. So we were on with this last year, but one thing and another, it's got a little bit left behind, but we're back on this now. So yeah, this was driven in period. This was Lawrence Bristow's car, but it was also a shared drive with Tim Harvey and Rob Gravitt. So we've put them on the roof as a little nod to them. We had this car at the NEC show, restoration show, not this year, last year. As it is here, then we put the glass and everything back in it. So here's some of the bits. I've been getting them out of a container today. You can see we've had all the suspension components blasted and powder coated. The front cross members in there, they're the rear arms. part of the rear beam. We've just got the rest of it out of the container, so we're going to start cleaning it all up now, cleaning the wiring up, sorting the gauges out, basically going through every component, painting it, cleaning it, new rose joints if it needs it, all new Goodrich hosing and Goodrich fittings if it needs it, and slowly start assembling this back together. So this is going to be mine and Steve's job over the next few weeks, along with a few other bits we've got coming in.
Right guys, as we mentioned earlier, the dampers on this car were no good, so we put a full new kit on it. So this is one of the old ones. So if I pull that out, so when this is seals in here are good, this is obviously a gas strut, so that's filled with the gas, and that should push that back up, but obviously I can push that back down and it just stays there. It doesn't actually come back out, so that to me says that that's good for the bin. So the other thing with this car is it didn't sit particularly level either, and obviously as I've stripped them, so that's the new spring that we've got for the front, and that's the old spring for the front. You can see there, obviously there's a height difference, so I think that this car's obviously had a mismatched set of springs and dampers on it, which is why it didn't sit level. So this is the new one that I've built up. I've put strut top back on, I've put the bump stop and dust shield on it, and I've checked the bearing inside. So it's probably worth noting that when you put these back together, there's a bearing that sits between here, and then when you turn the steering and the bottom knuckle turns, it allows all this platform to twist whilst it's bolted through the body, and this bit stays stationary. So that's just worth checking as well, because obviously they wear out and the claps and stuff like that. So yeah, so that just hopefully shows you a little bit about the dampers and what to look for when they're no good. I'm going to get on and I'm going to throw this on the car. So I'll stick it on time lapse and we'll see how we get on.
Right guys, it's nearing towards the end of play on Thursday, and I'm pleased to say we've finished, well, nearly finished with this car. Unfortunately, we had a corny kit, complete kit sent to us by Graham Good, and you can clearly see the courier's dropped one of the boxes as one of the cornies was poking halfway out of it and had damaged the threads. So Graham's kindly getting that changed for us. He's sending another one out. So as soon as that comes, is the front leg to put on this side, we can bleed the brakes, and this car is then finished. So quite a good collaboration, if you will, between me and Steve. We've both worked on this car while I've snoozed in cars in other workshop. But yeah, we're really, really pleased with the outcome. We haven't done a full restoration on this car. That's not what it came for. There was just mainly the oil leaks and a few other issues. We ended up taking the engine out to do all the oil leaks. And we obviously found the paint lifted and that on the chassis leg. So it just made more sense to take the engine out, do it correctly. So obviously while we put it back together, we've cleaned everything. We've had a lot of bolts and brackets and what have you, zinc plated. Turbo's been rebuilt because that had quite a bit of play in it, and it was the right time to get it done. So I think hopefully you'll see on the video, it speaks for itself. Although it's not a full restoration, as I say, we think it looks good. We're really, really pleased with it. And we hope the owner will be too. Right guys, it's Friday evening and we thought before we do our weekly roundup, we got a call from Paddock 10 Paint to tell us that they've done the inside and under the bonnet of the Eggenberger build. So we thought it would be nice to come down, have a look at it and update you on that. So here it is. And as you can see, it's what we expected. We're really, really, really pleased with it. First time they've done a race car here, and they're not easy. They're very difficult to paint. And we've come, and again, black. Everybody that's a painter or knows cars will all tell you black is the worst colour you can paint. And we're absolutely over the moon with it. As you can see, it's got a lovely, lovely big, deep shine to it. So I don't know what more I can say. We're just absolutely over the moon with it. Inside's all done. Under wheel arches and what have you. It's all been stone guarded, Gravitex, which is exactly how they were in period. My Bastos car's done like that. All the underneath of the car's done the same, apart from the centre section. But we'll show you more on that when it's finished, and we can show you the full underneath of the car. But as you can see, it's had 2 or 3 good coats of black, and it shines absolutely lovely. It's going to be a shame for us climbing in and out of it, aren't we? We're going to have to put rags everywhere so we don't mark it. But yeah, chuffed to bits. Looks good. Right, so that's a little update on this car for you. What we're going to do now is shoot back over to the workshop and we'll do a final roundup of what we've been up to this week. Right guys, it's got to Friday evening again, so our weekly roundup of where we've got to and what we've been up to. The RS500 that I started, that Steve finished off while I did a few other bits and pieces. I actually put a dashboard in a Moonstone RS500. That's gone to customer. All we have left on the RS500 is we're still waiting for the one corner shocker that arrived damaged. That'll be here tomorrow. So that will be finished, obviously a bank holiday Monday again. So Tuesday we'll get that shocker in, bleed the brakes. The customer's asked us to get that MOT'd. So we'll road test and MOT that at the same time. And there's another one finished. So today, me and Steve have jumped on Andy Kirkleys' car, the cam shipping. This is a genuine touring car. We've had the powder coated parts for quite a while. So we've assembled, I've put the rear arms in. What we've had to do is clean up all the adjusters, all the bobbins, I call it. We've wire wheeled all the nuts and bolts to make sure they're perfect. Drilled out everywhere that's had powder coating to make sure the bolts slide in and out perfectly. So obviously during if you like to pull a bolt out during a race, you can do it quickly. Steve's stripped the rear diff and had a look at it and inspected it, cleaned it all out inside the casing, resealed the cover, put that back on, put it in the rear beam. So that now is ready to go in the car. He's also, Steve has he started doing the top mounts. We put brand new top mounts in it. We had to drill the turret tops because some idiot, when he restored the shell, welded the holes up and forgot. Yeah, that was me. So we've re-drilled those, or Steve's re-drilled them. He's got one done, but we've run out of time today. So he's got the other one to do next week. The front uprights are built up, put the inserts and everything in, so they're ready. Once the cross members in, to put them in, put the discs and what have you, and calipers and everything on them. So we're moving forward quite well with this car. We're hoping, aren't we, Steve, by the end of next week, this hopefully should be virtually a rolling shell. So keep an eye out for progress on this one. And Steve's going to tell you about something else in the workshop.
Yeah, so earlier on this morning, we had a delivery of another car, this RS2000 here. Customer basically said he's give us a list of quite a few little bits and pieces that he wants us to look at and address. I don't think he's had the car long, has he?
No, he's only just bought it.
So I think he's looking at just, sorting out the little bits and pieces so he can enjoy it. So that's something else that will end up on the channel probably over the next month or so.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
So obviously if you've got any interest in these, you're best off subscribing.
Yeah, and it's just something different for us, isn't it? We're working on the
Yeah.
Sierras all the time. So when the customer, how it came about, the customer actually bought a Moonstone RS500 we had for sale. When he came up to look at the Moonstone car, he bought that. And he saw us what we did here, and I think he was quite impressed with our attention to detail. He looked around a lot of cars that we'd been working on and said he'd bought the RS2000 and he wanted just a couple of, there's quite a long list, but they're all niggly little things that he doesn't like, nothing major, and asked us if we'd do that. And we thought, you know what, it's something new, something different. So yeah, we enjoyed working on something a bit different.
I think that more or less rounds up the week, doesn't it?
It does, that's it. So thanks again for tuning in. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Tell your mates about us. There's two good looking blokes from up Yorkshire.
Share us on Facebook, all the rest of it. You know,
Yeah.
you know the script.
Well, thanks again for tuning in. We do appreciate it. And we'll hopefully see you on the next one.